slow down. Before that, it's on the exam, on the midterm. It is a needs theory of motivation. A non-hierarchical needs theory, right? You don't need to progress from one to the other. It is independent, so it's a non-hierarchical needs theory of motivation that outlines the conditions under which one or more of three needs are met. Those three needs are
need for power, need for achievement, and need for affiliation.
And affiliation. Power, achievement, affiliation. So we have certain conditions that will allow us to have our needs fulfilled. And it claims or purports that if we work in an environment that helps us fulfill those needs, we will be motivated. Okay? We're good with that?
Can you say that again?
All that?
Oh, the definition.
What do I say again?
The definition.
It's a non-hierarchical needs theory of motivation that outlines the conditions under which the fulfillment or the satisfaction of one or more of three needs leads to motivation. And those three needs, you already said, are power, achievement, and affiliation. We're good? Expectancy theory. Expectancy theory. Definition. Right? Understanding an expected outcome. So, we have how many kinds of outcomes? At least two. We have a first level, which is something that benefits the organization. An organizational outcome will lead to a second level outcome, which is a benefit to the individual. Exactly. Okay? So, what does expectancy theory say? If the value of the second level outcome is high enough, the valence of the second level outcome is high enough, it will act as a motivator for you to achieve the first level outcome, which is benefiting the organization. Okay? Certain conditions have to apply though, because if that second level outcome is not guaranteed, the instrumentality is not high, meaning you won't necessarily get what you want to get at the other end, its motivating potential to get the first level outcome is diminished. If I tell you, you achieve your sales figures this quarter, you might win a trip to Cuba, versus you meet your sales figures this quarter, you will get a trip to Cuba. If I say you will, I will expect higher motivation than if I say you might. Okay? So the value of Cuba is always going to be there. The instrumentality, how achieving one outcome will lead to the achievement of the second outcome, has to also be there. It has to be linked. You have to have high instrumentality for it to lead to greater motivation. We're good? Balance is value. How much do you value the trip to Cuba? So that's what we're talking about. Balance. Balance refers to the value you place on the second level outcome. Okay? Good? Very good. Cross-cultural limitations. Remember? We talked about, I didn't talk about equity theory. Equity theory. So, your inputs to your outcomes compared to somebody in a similar position's input to outcome ratio. So you can have two people who are motivated because one works twice as many hours as the other and receives twice as much salary. There is no inequity. They're working twice as hard, they're getting twice as much. It is fair. In an individualistic society like North America, equity works well. We believe in fairness because we're really concerned with ourselves. We're not a collective culture. We don't look for equality. We look for equity. Okay? So that's equity theory. If we take that into another culture, will it work just as well? No. Not necessarily. Okay? Which theory of motivation works particularly well? Goal setting works. And expectancy is perfect because the pieces or the components change. The valence changes, the instrumentality might change. However, we're all motivated by the second level outcome. whatever that might be in each particular culture. Okay? Good? Any other questions here? No, we're good? We're zipping through the first half of the semester, excuse me. Motivation and practice. Money as a motivator is good, yes?
Yes.
Yes, it's a good extrinsic motivator. It will be there, it will always be there. Don't focus too much on it, I think it's quite obvious, but you need to know that. Job design. Job design is a motivator. What does that mean?
That you change the job to
Sometimes
make it more interesting.
Sometimes changing the job a little bit can make it more interesting. Sometimes the job itself is all you need. Sometimes making the job more interesting is enough to get people to work harder towards organizational goals. So sometimes organizations will spend less time worrying about bonus structures and more time thinking about how the work is done. Right? How the work they expect their employees to do is structured. Am I giving my employees boring work to do? If so, how can I change it in such a way to make it less boring, more intrinsically motivating? So, we refer to this handy little tool called the job characteristics model. What is skill variety? What is skill variety?
The different tasks that you have to do.
Different tasks that you have to perform in your job. The more tasks you have, one would consider, again, not being exaggerated, one would consider that to be more motivating, more challenging. Task identity is defined as
How you can relate to it.
being able to identify what it is that you're working on. If you're just putting little pieces into a board and don't get to see the finished product, there is low task identity. You do not see it from putting the component in the board to being able to use it as a remote control device. So seeing it from one end to the other, seeing a complete cycle of work, refers to task identity. Task significance is defined as the impact that you have, the importance on other people. Okay? Significance is on other people. What you do in the organization, does it have an impact on other people? Now, other people could be other people in your company, it could be suppliers, clients, but the impact your task has on others refers to task significance. Do I do a job that matters? Do I do a job that matters? That's the question. Autonomy refers to the ability to manage your work, such as your time, the way you do the work, okay? So it gives you that you have the latitude and the freedom to do the work in a manner that suits you. It means high autonomy. And feedback is information you get back about the quality of your performance. Okay, so that comes from either built into the job or from superiors or co-workers. So it was mentioned earlier, job design. If a job is in, we go through what's called job enrichment. What does job enrichment strive to do? Increase the scope, which increases the intrinsic motivating potential of a job. Just because you make it more intrinsically motivating doesn't mean that everyone will be motivated. You're trying to increase the potential for the job to be more intrinsically motivated, making it enjoyable for the individual doing it and making the job the motivator. The job itself becomes the motivator. Okay? Many job enrichment strategies, such as, what's a job enrichment strategy?
Job rotation.
Job rotation, very good. Besides job rotation, combining tasks.
Flex time.
Flex time, could be, yes. Forming work teams.
Meeting the public.
Internal or external contact with clients, right? Working with internal or external clients, if you have that in your personality to do so. Okay? Many different ways to make a job more interesting by adding certain dimensions to it. Goal setting. Management by objectives is a good example. How do you manage by objectives? Give me the cycle.
I don't know the cycle is like setting goals, setting.
So who sets the goals?
Well, you set the goals for the whole organization, then you set them for the individuals, and then you communicate them to.
Okay, so you set the larger organizational goals, then managers meet with actual individuals to give them their goals and discuss their goals.
To agree.
Then there's
develop
periodic
meetings.
meetings to see how the progress is coming.
And how how they actually did.
Then there's an actual appraisal process, there's an actual line where we say, how did you do? Did you achieve the goals?
Then you do it again.
And then you repeat. Okay? It involves a lot of paperwork, involves a lot of time, but it's very motivating because you're getting people involved in their own performance process. Okay? So goal setting is seen to work in many different cultural contexts and can enhance the feeling of intrinsic motivation towards the job. Alternative work schedules. Give me an example of one.
Flex time,
Flex time,
compressed work,
compressed work week,
job
job sharing,
telecommuting.
telecommuting. Good. So working from anywhere, typically from home. Okay, good. Employee diversity. Different people have different needs. If you're a recent parent, having more flex time to be able to be with your young child is a good thing. So diversity takes on different dimensions. Again, don't look at diversity in a stereotypical cultural sense. Not just different races. Okay, we can look at diversity in many different ways. Okay? We're good? Okay, we're in the second half of the semester. Very good, actually, you're doing well. Groups. What's a formal group? Set by the organization. It is assigned. People are assigned to that group to achieve an organizational goal. Exactly. Okay? A formal group is a group of people whose members are assigned to it with specific tasks that are linked directly to the organization. Easily put. What's an informal group? Yes, it emerges naturally as a result of common interests. Smokers, water cooler people, lunchtime gang, okay? Do these people's goals align with the organization's goal? No, it depends. Not necessarily, exactly. They could. They can certainly be right in line, which would be wonderful. But there's nothing that obliges them to. They emerge over common interests, and the interest may be something outside of work. Good. The stages of group development. First stage. Forming. Storming. Norming. Performing. Adjourning. Very good. Okay? Do you have to go through all the stages?
No.
Not necessarily. You may skip 1, 2, or 3, depending. Some organizations have systems in place where you don't have to worry about that because you're given exactly what the norms are going to be, what the deadlines are, and what your performance expectations are expected to be. Excuse me. Punctuated equilibrium model begins with a first meeting,
Phase 1.
right? Group is made. Stage 1. What happens during stage 1?
Not much.
A lot of work, very little progress. A lot of people doing a lot of stuff. Everyone's busy, but no one is necessarily working in the same direction. It's good. What happens at the midpoint? They realize, okay, we got to start picking one of these directions, and so there has to be some kind of a shift at the midpoint. The midpoint shift is important. Why?
It determines the performance.
It determines what stage 2 is going to be. And stage 2 has to be a marked increase in performance because there is less experimentation. There's less individual work with no collaboration. It's focus work on a singular project. So all the effort, instead of having 5 people work on 5 tasks, you have 5 people working on 1 task. That's where you get that shift at the midpoint. And the second phase is punctuated by deadline and frantic work, accelerated work to achieve the goal by the deadline. Okay? Those are the 2 models. We're good? Any questions? Good. Group structure and its consequences. Right? Group structure, we talked about size. So let's just talk for a second. Group size and member diversity. Typically, the larger the group and the more diverse. More or less cohesive? Less cohesive. Why would a large group be less cohesive?
Too many conflicting ideas. Maybe?
Too many conflicting ideas. Not everyone is heard.
Less communication.
Less communication. Good. Okay? So, larger groups, same idea. Very diverse groups at the beginning.
Yeah.
Resistance, not necessarily good cohesive structures, but over time, surface diversity, things like ageism and cultural background dissipate. Once you get over that hump, it's fine. When you have deep-rooted diversity, that really stemming from values and things that we hold very dear and very personal, and we do not want to see it from another person's perspective, that can be very divisive, and that can prevent group cohesiveness. Okay? So now, we talk about what's an additive task. What is an additive task?
Everyone.
Everybody does one task and the sum of them is basically the final task.
So the task is a function of the sum of many subtasks. That's additive. So you add up the contribution of each individual. Therefore, in that situation, larger group is better or smaller group is better? Larger the group, better the performance, right? If you have to clean the neighborhood, having 10 people is good, having 1,000 people is better. Because you add up the sums of each person's contribution and you get 1,000 people cleaning the neighborhood, right? What's a disjunctive task?
It's
Performance dependent on the performance of a certain individual, like the best worker.
The single best individual of the group will determine the group's success. For example, scientific research is an easy one. A lab with a top-notch researcher can guide the rest of the research team towards success. In that case, larger is better or smaller is better?
larger.
Why larger? More chance of getting a star performer. Excellent. What's a conjunctive task?
The performance depends on
The performance of a group is limited by the performance of the single weakest individual. Okay? An assembly line is a perfect example. So the weakest person will dictate the entire output rate. Larger group or smaller group is better? Smaller. For the same reason. Larger number, more chance of getting a weak member. Very good. Norms and roles in social interaction. I think we're comfortable with that. Norms. In society we have certain things that we expect people to do. In North America, people raise their hand to ask a question in class. Okay? Comfortable with that? Norms are easy. Roles in social interaction, we talked about in class. Again, nothing, anybody have questions about it? No? Straightforward. Okay? It's all about group, we talk about group cohesiveness. Once we have the norms set up for a group, then as long as we adhere to the norms, there's going to be social harmony. Okay?
So do you have to know the conflicting roles?
No.
Okay.
Group cohesiveness and its consequences. Cohesive groups are good, yes?
Yes.
Depends. Not always. When is a cohesive group not a good thing?
When they agree with the organization.
One more time.
When does not serve the organization.
They agree with the organizational goals.
When they don't, when they're not in line with the organization's goals. If they're cohesive around elements that do not contribute to the attainment of organizational objectives. Right. Okay? You can be cohesive on social matters. That doesn't in any way help an organization. They can be so cohesive, in fact, that trying to bring in new members is virtually impossible. Okay? Cohesive and insular are very different. You can be cohesive, but inclusive. Some groups become so cohesive that anybody who's not part of the group is never welcome, which can be a problem. All right, social loafing. Two kinds of social loafing. Free rider effect, which is
You get a free ride, but nothing from getting
The law of
where you withhold physical or intellectual contribution to work because someone else or the group carries you. Okay, the group carries you to do the work. So you withhold that effort. What kind of a problem is it? What kind of a problem? What is it a problem of? It's a motivation problem. It's a problem in withholding effort, okay, toward the attainment of a goal. So someone is withholding effort because they're not motivated to do so, yet the group they are with allows them to continue to move forward and achieve the organization's goals. The other ones, we have free rider, social loafing, also is known to be sucker effect. Okay, what's a sucker effect?
when you withhold your contribution because you feel like other people are getting a free ride.
Bingo. Withholding effort, whether intellectual or physical, because you feel that people around you are getting a free ride. So you do not want to be taken for a sucker, so you...
Is it a consequence of free ride or is it an anticipation of free ride?
typically in reaction to free riding. Okay? Not saying, man, I expect that guy to be a slacker, so I'm just gonna stop working right now. No, usually, no, it's not a preemptive strike. No, it's not. Yeah, I worked with him before, he's lazy, so I'm not gonna work. No, it's gonna be more, they're slacking off, you know what? If you're gonna slack off, I'll slack off too bad. Okay? Good? Are we clear? Easy enough? We're all comfortable? The ideas of structure, cohesiveness, social well-being, we're good? Okay. Now, organizational culture. Beliefs, values, and assumptions, right? That define an organizational, what a culture stands for within an organization. What's an example of a shared belief? Shared belief? Common goal? Shared belief. An organization that believes that we stand for the customer is always right. Okay? So it could be a policy statement. It could be a value statement. It could be a performance statement. Okay? Some kind of an affirmation. An affirmation that is shared by all people. So it's a belief that we all live by. We all agree on this particular belief. We all agree to this particular mantra, this particular philosophy. Okay? Values are those philosophies, those particular aspects, what the organization stands for. Not what everyone believes, but why does the organization exist? Values. Okay? It exists to find a cure for cancer. It exists to make communication transparent across the entire globe. It exists to give people access to shoes at a good price. It exists, whatever. The reason it exists. Okay? And assumptions. What are assumptions? What are the assumptions in an organization? Assuming you're right. What else?
Assuming the role of leaders in be good.
Okay. Okay. Assumptions are things we take for granted. Things we take for granted. Things operate in a certain manner. The organization stands for certain things, and it behaves in a certain manner, and we expect it to behave, the organization to behave in that manner all the time. So we assume the continuity of what it is that we do and what we stand for. Okay? We just take them for granted, and we see them ongoing beyond us, beyond this manager, beyond the next manager.
Let's say like for Disney, what would we believe about it?
So for Disney, what is the shared belief for Disney?
Happiness, joy, illusion.
Happiness, joy.
Well, kingdom of the kids.
For kids from 8 to
75.
98, right? Okay, for all kids, a place for all kids. It's a wonderland. It's a magical place on earth, right? We all believe the same thing. We all believe the client deserves our full attention and our full project, right? The client deserves the full performance that we can provide. Values. Right? They believe in magic. They believe in bringing joy to the environment that they have. They believe in making this happiest place on earth come to life every day. Okay? They believe that their values are all about creating a magical space. It's all about creating this other reality. Okay? They value teamwork. They value cooperation, collaboration. They value customer service beyond customer service. Okay? It's a performance art that they do. They're always performing. Everybody's on stage. Okay, so they value the quality of the performance. Now the assumptions. What kind of assumptions do you think Disney would have? What do people at Disney assume?
That everybody's all equally and happy and ready to go.
Yeah, it's not just them, right? It's not just me working to make people happy. Everybody is. From the gate person, to the person cleaning, to the ferry in the parade. What else would they assume? Everybody wants to be at Disney, right? The assumption is everybody wants to be here. Everybody wants to work as hard as me. Okay? These shared assumptions are a very important part of creating a culture which builds cohesion within the organization. Strong cultures, assets, coordination, right? What's a strong culture? In your words, strong culture.
Where there's a lot of structure.
Where the organization has a lot of structure, where rules are defined.
Intents, values, beliefs, and assumptions. Their intents, the values, assumptions, and beliefs.
They're very clear. They're outlined and they're articulated to the organization. There's no room for ambiguity. Everything is very precise and very structured. Okay, it's very clear what everybody's roles are, and it's very clear what the organization stands for. Okay, it's very easy to identify that an organization that believes in customer service will always deliver excellent customer service in any circumstance. All right, so it helps you coordinate efforts. It helps you resolve conflicts because oftentimes we're on the same page trying to get to the same objective. Therefore, we'll find a way to resolve it for the benefit or the good of the organization or the client or whoever you're servicing. Financial success, less waste, less doubling of efforts, personal responsibility for how I do my work, which contributes positively to our organization's success. Okay, you get a lot of people buying in to the idea that achieving the organization's goals is a good thing. Okay? Liabilities, resistance to change, how? Yeah, we've always done it this way. We've always done it and it's led to our success. Why would we change it? Right? You become very afraid of changing the recipe that made you what you are. Culture clash happens when? Two organizations, two companies merge together, right? It becomes an us versus them. If you thought forever that you were the right, in the right, you were the good ones, you were the ones doing all the right things, then you join forces with your rival, your former rival, how can you all of a sudden forget the past? How do you simply say, oh yeah, we'll just take on some of their values? No, you hold on to yours very strong, and then these two cultures start to collide with one another. And pathology. Sometimes some cultures are rooted in secrecy, in such competition that people are actually backstabbing each other. There's paranoia, all right? And sometimes there's cheating as a way of life. If you don't cheat or cut corners, then you're not going to make money in a particular industry. And some industries are a little bit more renowned for bad behavior, okay? And that leads to pathology. People end up going against their own personal values in order to stay with the organization. Okay? So, we look to identify an organizational culture by looking at symbols. Give me an example of a symbol. An actual example.
The logo of
The logo of JMSB. The apple symbol.
A mascot.
A mascot. And usually there's meaning to it. Right? What is the meaning of the bite in the apple? Is it what do you know? What's the two different stories?
I know one that apparently was just when you were printing it out, there was a part that was missing, so just left it like that.
Okay.
And
Okay. I've heard different versions as well. I'm not even sure which is true. I heard taking a bite out of the fruit of knowledge. Right? There's a famous fruit of knowledge. So you take a bite out of the fruit. There's all kinds of stories circulating around, but it's these stories, right, that help people to develop these thoughts about what an organization stands for. A Nike swoosh, which is an accelerator, an acceleration, movement. Okay, what does it symbolize? It symbolizes fluidity and so on. Okay, so each of the logos, Concordia logo is an open book, right? The idea of academia, of knowledge, of thirst for learning. So all these symbols are rooted in many different facets. If you look at the logo of the flag of Montreal, Montreal flag has 4 different quadrants. Do you know what's in each quadrant? What kind of flowers? Fleurs French background. There's a clover. Clover for the Irish population that developed Montreal. What other flowers are there? There's a rose for the British colonies that form Montreal. There's a 4th flower. Look it up before the exam just for fun. Okay? How to diagnose a culture? Symbols, rituals, things organizational members do repeatedly. What they do repeatedly. Okay? They do it and it's consistent and it's almost predictable. And stories. I give you the story about future electronics. These stories are passed down and convey certain messages about what the culture stands for. At Future Electronics, they stood for excellence. They stood for achievement. Right? And the stories reflect that message they're trying to convey to all their members. and sometimes to the outside world as well. We're good? Okay, leadership. Formal leadership is leadership that is assigned. People are hired into a specific role. They are hired to manage other people, manage processes. Okay? Trait theory of leadership, is it right? First of all, does the trait theory of leadership make sense? What is the trait theory of leadership?
Some traits lead to better leaders.
So basically it says that leaders are born. You have certain traits to be a leader or you don't have traits to be a leader. That's what it says. So that means if you don't have those traits, tough luck, you can't be a leader. Now we know to a great extent that that's not very accurate. You can't put one person who has leadership traits in any leadership situation and have that person be successful. It's not a guarantee. Okay? So just because you have certain traits of intellectual capability, reasoning, good communication skills, while they all contribute, they're not a predictor or guarantor of success. Leadership behaviors, we talked about consideration and initiating structure. Now House added to that, right? So he had 4 different behaviors. What is directive behavior? What is directive behavior, according to House?
Like the structure,
It's like initiating structure, exactly, which is defined as
giving tasks and
assigning tasks, creating schedules, very, very mechanical management, mechanical leadership. Assigning work, ensuring people know what to do and how to do it and when to do it. Okay? It's the drill sergeant approach to managing people. Okay? Which is good. If you don't know what the task is, or you've never done it before, you'd really appreciate someone telling you how to do it. It would be really bad if you show up and you don't know what to do, and someone says, good luck on the job. And it's not a really good way to get your job started. You want someone to guide you. Directive behavior is good in that instance. None of these is inherently great, none is inherently bad. They're all good in the right circumstance. Supportive behavior. What is supportive behavior?
like
Same as
consideration,
consideration, which is defined as
caring more about the people than the task.
approachable, there for the employees, interested in person a little bit more than task, and employee well-being, relationships, exactly. More interested with how your employees feel and providing them with a safe psychological environment in which to do their work. Okay? If you know your job and your job is frustrating but you know how to do it, you're very skilled at it, you don't need to be told how to do your job, you just need someone to listen to you, to ensure that you've got all that you need. Okay? You have to be more considerate, or in this case, supportive. Okay? Good? Participative behavior, which is
For the trenches, like, express their opinions.
one who seeks, a leader who seeks the input of his or her team. Okay, so participative involves the employees in the day-to-day work, in the decision-making, and in the overall operations. So someone who seeks the input from their employees. Participative leaders. Good? And finally, achievement-oriented behavior. A leader that shows achievement-oriented behavior does what? Sets high goals and pushes their employees to achieve them, right? Coaching model, coaching type approach to getting people to go beyond what they think they can achieve or think they can perform. Okay, so achievement oriented